Diavolo is the main villain in JoJo's Part 5 Golden Wind. However, he's very strange and unique, but a great villain. His character design is very unusual. He has pink hair, and then he'll look more like a boy when he's in one of the soul's forms, and then the other soul looks completely different. I prefer the stronger, more powerful looking soul, but both appearances that he has are unique. He has one of the most crazy and unusual personalities. He has multi-personality disorder and he's delusional. It was always so funny whenever he would find anything to pretend or use as a phone and then make the ringing noise with his own mouth and then pick the phone up and talk to the boss in his own head, as if he didn't know that he shared the body with the other soul and he would only be able to hear him if he was using that thing as a phone. This right away showed us the state Diavolo was in. He was in an unhinged, out of reality, just crazy state. So because he was completely out of reality and he didn't understand things properly, he could be very dangerous because he might not even understand what he's doing is wrong or be seeing things properly, so he can be a lot of trouble for the main characters. No matter what hard situation Diavolo got himself in though, he was determined to prove himself to the boss and do what the boss wants him to do, even though the boss is pretty much himself, the other soul sharing the body with him. Because of his delusional ways, it always made for entertaining moments. For example, when he was trying to make Bucciarati bring him to the Colosseum, he kept panicking and freaking out, wasn't very confident, but he was determined, so he was able to make it past the difficulties he was having. The first soul, which we see him in most of the time, is very nervous, unconfident, but determined to do as the boss says and I guess prove himself to the boss. Now we see with the second soul, he's almost the exact opposite as the younger child version of Diavolo, the first soul. He's very confident, he's strong, powerful, extremely confident and egotistical, and just does whatever he wants. It's like these two personalities he had are made to be opposite of each other, and what each one lacks, the other one has. Whether it was the confidence and the ego that the first soul of Diavolo lacked, the second soul lacked the kindness and patience that the first soul of Diavolo had. I just feel like that's a very good idea for a villain, and it's good that the final version of Diavolo we saw them going up against was the evil version of Diavolo, the more confident and egotistical version of Diavolo. And it's just so unique in a way how it's like the first soul was a pawn and not even that evil and following the lead of the other soul in Diavolo. The second soul of Diavolo was pretty unhinged, out of control, could get very angry, and the mental problems he had were very clear, and Diavolo couldn't really be reasoned with just because of how insane he was. I thought that Diavolo's stand was pretty cool. I thought that the design looked good. The ability he has with the stand is also very unique, which is a time skip ability. He can pretty much erase time for up to 10 seconds, which lets him see 10 seconds into the future and move freely. It's pretty similar to Dio's ability, but it's actually a time skip. So it's like he sees what's going on during the time he chooses to erase for everyone else, which is just a very powerful and cool ability. Diavolo was a very crazy and just odd villain because of how strange his personality was and his mental state was, the way he saw things, and his reactions were just very strange. But it just kind of fits so well because they didn't go that in depth with Diavolo as they did with all the other JoJo's villains, on his backstory, on how he's got to this point, on more about him, like how they did with Dio or the Pillarman or even Yoshikage Kira. They just didn't go as in depth with him. There wasn't as much we knew about him, but the fact that he was so crazy and just his mental state was so messed up, it didn't really feel as necessary because since he's so crazy, maybe he is just doing all of this because of how much of a lunatic he is and the fact that he's delusional. And a lot of the other backstories we see for the other characters wouldn't need to be as in-depth with him because it's simply just all caused by his multi-personality disorder and his delusions. And all that he focuses on is following the boss as the first soul. Just because of how unusual and unique Diavolo is, he's very interesting. Like, when do you see another villain like Diavolo who's so strange, so awkward, who has two souls in one body? It just makes for a very entertaining and interesting watch and experience. It makes him so unpredictable because you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know exactly what he's thinking because he's completely crazy and delusional. So we know the other villains like Dio and the Pillar Man were much more understandable because they were just very confident, egotistical villains who were doing whatever they wanted. They were pretty smart, but they had goals and they were going to do what would get them there. But Diavolo, he would just do things in strange ways, see things in strange ways, react in strange ways that were not normal. And his thought process was off at times, and you don't know which soul Diavolo's actions are going to be caused by, because one of the souls is very unconfident, has kindness, and isn't completely evil, while the other soul is evil, confident, and egotistical. So he's just very unpredictable. One last thing I want to say about Diavolo is I really liked the voice acting for him. I thought that the voices fit him perfectly. When it was the first soul of Diavolo, the voice sounded more high-pitched, more immature, more unconfident. It just really fit the character. And then the other soul had a deeper, more intimidating, and just sounded like a voice that really fit an evil, egotistical, and powerful villain who was completely crazy. Overall, I think Diavolo is a good villain. It's just that the fact that we don't get to see as much about him and his character's not as in depth as all the other JoJo's villains, I feel like really ruins his character. The thing is, it's not really as needed for him, but it doesn't allow you to like the character as much or connect and understand the character as much, which kind of doesn't allow you to like them as much, even though it's not as needed for him to be as in-depth, since he was like crazy and just such an unusual individual. That in a way doesn't really need it to be understood because of the fact that he's crazy to the degree that he is. I still kind of feel like that hurts his character, but it definitely makes for an interesting and great villain still. I view him as a very messy villain. A lot of the things he did were so random and unexpected. It's not like he does things in a certain way because it's how he likes them. Like we see with Dio, he does things putting himself first, doing whatever he wants because he thinks he's the best, and things that will benefit him or he'll get joy from, and it will also harm others. Or Yoshikage Kira wants to live a peaceful life and is not as interested in others, so their actions are going to pretty much be based on that. However, Diavolo, he's just so random that everything just feels very messy with him, but that just makes it very entertaining because there's no proper setup that Diavolo has, and it's not as well organized as other JoJo's villains. Yes, maybe it does kind of take away from his character and not make him as in-depth, but I guess at the same time, it does bring unique personality to his character. So overall, I think Diavolo was a very good villain. He's definitely not the best JoJo's villain, but definitely one that I like and I feel like is the most unique. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you like Diavolo? Do you think he's the best JoJo's villain, or which villains do you think are better? What things do you like about Diavolo, and what do you think makes him a good villain? Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.